Next card I have is from Ms. Gilchrist.
Evening. I have come here tonight to ask for some help. We have, as this is a governing body of the city of, you have the authority to end an issue that has been going on for 18 months. And that's what I'm going to use tonight to talk to you about tonight. I'm first going to talk to you about your policies and your procedures. There are 10, but I'm only going to reference 2 of them. The first one is number 5, and this is to eliminate confusion about city codes enforcement policies, ensure the due process and the right of the residents to clearly define the appeal process. Number 7, ensure each case is handled as fairly and carefully as possible with standards applied with equality and consistency. Now, these policies are good policies, but I don't feel that they have been used in one of the issues of my family. My name is Julie Gilchrist, and the Gilchrist that I'm talking about live in 12 Bridges. And they had built a wall to stop erosion from the top part of their backyard that was coming down into the street and damaging their home and their property. And according to Ms. Mollenkoff's predecessor, he came to the property and said that he thought a wall would be appropriate and would be in code, and it would be in their, on their property, and without a PUD on that side of the street, it would be a permissible. One of the neighbors said, so they say Mrs. Gilchrist, it sounds kind of funny because I'm Mrs. Gilchrist, started a wall along their line as she was told that she could do because it's on her private property. And one of the neighbors complained, and so they were cease and desist order that stopped all building of the wall, leaving the backyard completely open with a swimming pool exposed, which scared me a lot because there's a lot of children in the neighborhood, and the property unprotected from the vandalism, which cost the Gilchrist thousands of dollars. Mrs. Gilchrist's citation did not include any code enforcement policies, either defined or appeal process. It did not eliminate confusion, and it clearly defined the appeal process. Instead of giving her more clarity, she was cited with a letter that had accused her of and had threatened criminal prosecution. Am I up already?
Yes.
Okay, well, let me just say this then. Thank you for, I didn't realize that the time was going that fast. If you were to look at your procedures and your policies, there are many things that I will probably put this in writing and send to you now, because they were not followed, and it has cost their family a great deal of money, time, and anguish. And we wish that we would be able to have a more fair hearing on it. Thank you for your time. I won't go over anymore. Thank you.
Any other comments?
People can hear you better if you pull the mic in.
Mr. Chapman?
Hello, Mayor, council members, city staff, and again, those take the time and the effort to come here. I've been involved with a nonprofit organization for over a dozen years at least. It's called A Touch of Understanding. We refer to it as ATOU. We have 7 different counties that we go to. And our focus group is elementary schools, and predominantly 3rd through 5th. 4th grade is ideal, but the other 2 work real well. And what the workshop does is it simply presents what disabilities are out there and any myth that might come up. But most importantly, the program is put on, it's 3 hours and start to finish. It's not just a sit down and listen to information. There's 6 different activity stations that take place. For example, just for the number count, if we had 100 students, 50 would be going through those 6 different workstations, and the other 50 would be listening and encouraged to ask questions of the speakers who have disabilities. So it's an avenue in which to literally just open their minds. And what the organization, they've been in a nonprofit for 30 years now, and I think we've reached well over 100,000 students in that amount of time. That's not including what we call a ripple effect. So basically, what I did was, and I'll go ahead and give this to Gwen, it's just got the date, the third program that we've given will be this year will be at Foskett, and it'll be on February the 22nd. And it's got the time and the location. And if you have any questions, I put down the coordinator's name. You can simply give her a call if you're interested and would like to come. It's a fun-filled time. It's an eye-opener for a whole lot of other things, and most importantly, we have a tremendous amount of fun. And we've been doing Lincoln as well as all of the other elementary schools throughout the county for as far as I've ever been here, which is at least 10, 12 years. So with that, I just wanted to invite all of you. It isn't just for the council members. If there's anyone else who would like to be involved in the program, simply contact them. And it starts at 8:45, so it doesn't hopefully bite into anybody's morning, but hopefully you guys can make it. Now give this to Gwen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any other comments from the audience?
We do have a hand raised on Zoom, Mayor.
Okay.
Dawn Veltri, please unmute yourself.
Hello, thank you for letting me talk. I'm doing my city council update for our neighborhood with the homeless. I attended our last meeting 3 weeks ago, and I shared a concern about the street sign on Gateway Drive. And I have to say a huge thank you for our city attorney in implementing the new sign that says no parking from 10 p instead of 6 p. So that was huge. I actually had a dinner party last night because I was so stoked that my friends could park on the street. So thank you for that. A big thank you. And at the same time, though, the next day I did send an email out and asked about the 10 by 10, because I know that the city's been trying to implement that, enforce that. But at the area down where the development is, there is a specific area that the code enforcement knows about, but it isn't 10 by 10, and it's been over a year. I understand they say they try to get to that, and I appreciate that. But once again, it's been over a year. Then there was another one right next to it, a huge area of trash was shared by code enforcement that was an abandoned one. And then of course the rains came last week and no electricity came last week, so it made it more difficult. But I just wanted to share, hoping that we can still continue to support that cleanup area and the enforcement of the 10 by 10s. I know that we have many people on city council that support that, especially our city attorney, who's phenomenal. Love that woman. And our code enforcers, she's really helpful. But once again, I was just concerned because it's been over a year. This actually, tomorrow is my year anniversary with implementing myself and learning more about city council and coming to every meeting. And that was the moment of discussion at that time a year ago. So I don't know what you can share with me, what I can do, what my development can do. I do know that we do have those friends of the Auburn Ravine that come out, but just wanted to share that. Once again, kudos and thank you for changing the street sign on Gateway Drive. I just wanted to share that. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your report, Dawn. Any other members of the public wishing to comment? Okay, I'll close public comment. Take it in reverse order. Christine, will you coordinate with the
Yes, very happy
enforcement.
to, code enforcement, and with the weather, as you can likely understand, the last several weeks have been very difficult in getting our, not only code enforcement down to post camps, but getting law enforcement down there. It's extremely muddy. Our Adopt a Creek team was unable to go out. I think last week was actually the point in time count, so our time was split doing that rather than cleanup. And as we've tried to explain, there are lots of challenges in California because of the Ninth Circuit Court decision in Martin versus Boise, which has been taken up by the United States Supreme Court. And all tales point to April being the hearing date on that case. So we will have some more clarity, hopefully, and closer to a national standard for the enforcement of homelessness issues. But with the 10 by 10 issue, we've been doing our best. We've been posting encampments. Unfortunately, this is a population that is very mobile, and they will pack up their encampment, get in compliance, and then move, which starts the process all over again. So it has its challenges, and but we're working our best with the community and with our law enforcement agencies, as well as the salt mine and other nonprofits.
Comments? The second item, I guess, is also to Christine. If I understood what is Gilchrist asked for was a hearing to override decisions made. I want to know if there is a process for doing that, for overriding the actions they've taken, and what is it, and what should they do if they want to bring it before the city council?
There is a process. The first step was the hearing, the administrative hearing that was conducted. The second step, if one is dissatisfied with that, is to, I believe, take it to city council. I have been in communication up until very recently with Ms. Gilchrist's attorney. And Ms. Gilchrist is also involved in a simultaneous parallel claims process that would result in litigation in court. And so I'm very limited and restricted as to what I can say at this point.
The same with us. Okay, thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. All of these items will be, unless an item is removed, will be enacted with one vote. Does anyone wish to move anything from the consent agenda?
No.
Anyone from staff? Anyone from the public? Okay, I'll entertain a motion on the consent.
I move approval of the consent.
Second. I have a motion and a second.
Yes, thank you. Councilmember Andriana?
Yes.
Councilmember Joyner?
Yes.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Lauritsen?
Yes.
And Mayor Carl Skint.
Yes. Next item on the agenda is public hearings. The first is a public hearing to waive the first reading and introduce by title only ordinance 1077B, amending chapter 10.8, transferring authority from the chief of police to the city engineer for city engineer. Sean.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to go through the detail of the change, but I think it might just be easier to talk about more broadly because it's half a cleanup item and half a sort of best practices item. And perhaps our city engineer could speak a little to process. But as you know, one of the things that one of the challenges that we deal with, especially in a growing community all the time, is dissatisfaction with traffic patterns, with speeding, with stop signs, for and against, you name it. And so our code was written in a very similar way to how most of the codes were written in California between about 1930-ish through probably the late 70s, early 80s. And that was essentially that the chief of police, in most cases, in some cases, the city manager, just had almost absolute authority to make decisions about where you put in a stop sign, where you red curb an area, where a crosswalk may or may not go. And for a long time, that was fine. But as traffic engineering has evolved and risk-based decision-making has become much more important, and data-driven decision-making has become much more important, the liability concerns for local communities have expanded significantly for design flaws or improvements that were put in place that without appropriate analysis. And so our code is sort of built that way still. And there's a concept that you probably read about in the report, that term that's used, which is called design immunity. And the concept is that if you have a professional, like two of the gentlemen that have PEs behind their names sitting on the front table, they are certified to do that analysis and come up with reasonable traffic solutions that, at least conceptually and from a data perspective, can be accepted as safe in the area. And there's a whole host of manuals and trainings that go along with that. I think Chief Alves would probably tell you that he is not necessarily an engineering expert in that way. And so when we talked about amending this, actually it's sort of interesting, I'll just share with the council that initially the way that Gwen and I had put together the code section, it was that the city engineer will essentially now sub in as the authority for making those decisions. And I added in, or city manager. And Vin came down to my office and said, in a very nice way, hey, I don't know if that's such a good idea, because it's not you, but, and the point was well taken, which is that if you're going to hire a professional engineer to do that kind of work, you need to give them the authority without somebody like me overruling it. And it's important because he makes decisions not only based on what the community needs, but on how the actual engineering may lay out. That said, one of the questions that I've gotten since this has been brought up is, what happens if we just don't agree with Vin? Or we really want to do something and Vin says, I think that's a really bad idea, you shouldn't do it. As with almost all matters at the city of Lincoln here, the city council has the authority to, on a majority vote, to overrule any of those decisions. And, where he says we shouldn't put a stop sign, you say, well, I understand, I hear you, Vin, but we feel like we need to do it anyway, and we're voting that way. You lose no authority or power in that sense. But for routine matters that we just deal with at a staff level, it'll be the city engineer that makes the call moving forward. And that's sort of the generalities of it. I don't know if the city engineer wants to add anything to that or not.
Well, yeah, thank you for that good summary, Jashan. The only thing I would like to add is what you touch on is design immunity, right? With the licensed professional engineer, you are expected to apply engineering judgment in a lot of your decision making, especially when it pertains to traffic collisions, right? As our city attorney is probably aware, whenever you have fatalities or major injuries, in fact, a public works director and I just came from a meeting with Caltrans and PCTPA and SPORTA. They are adamant about having the appropriate authority when it comes to certain projects and project approval, having the right names and stamps and authorities approving plans. And, the reason for that is to maintain the design immunity defense if something does end up, in court. And that's the main reason for this update. We're always going to try to do the best we can in what's right. And then there are a lot of rules and regulations in place. Most importantly, or the MUTCD, Manual for Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which is state law and state guidance for how we implement things. That's not to say that, you know, we can't deviate from that. If there's a instance where, as I talked to Sean about, council is adamant about making a change and we can justify it, and the council is willing to take on some additional risks beyond what the state laws and rules and regulations allow, we can do that. So that's really all I have to add. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from the board members?
I don't have a question. I just have a comment. I just wanted to say I appreciate the language in here, still consulting law enforcement when needed. I totally understand that chief is not an engineer, and this makes perfect sense to change the authority on this, but they do have expertise, and so I would hate to see a situation where you just don't listen to them at all. So I appreciate the language that we could include that to make the best decision for the safety of our residents. So thanks.
That's it for the council. Anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item?
We need to open the public hearing, Mayor.
Oh, that's right. I'll open the public hearing. Any,
I would like to make a comment. Then Sean and I have briefly discussed having a more formal approach to addressing traffic safety concerns in the community. And we've kicked around the idea of initiating a traffic safety committee where we'd have a regular meeting with law enforcement to go over those issues in the community, to see if we can come up with a comprehensive kind of a review process, as well as comprehensive solution to addressing concerns. So that's something that we're looking at initiating in the future.
this committee that you're talking about, a staff committee,
Yes.
okay, with the different departments?
Yeah, it really would just be informal staff coordination, collaboration. The three main tenets of traffic engineering or traffic safety is really, it's based on not just engineering, it's education, engineering, and enforcement. It's very, very important that we continue to collaborate, and it's staff's intent to do that, you know, informally, when we receive requests for service.
My hearing aids make me sound loud. Is there anyone in the public?
Your hearing
Present.
aids are lying to you, by the way.
My hearing aids are lying to me. That we should speak on this item. Is there anyone?
No one
online?
online.
I'll close public hearing. Bring it back for discussion or vote.
If there is no discussion, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the item.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second.
Thank you. Councilmember Joyner,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Andriotta,
Yes.
Councilmember Lauritsen,
Yes.
and Mayor Carlskin.
Yes. Good. The
Keep going.
next item on the agenda, we're into business, general business, 10A. This item is a discussion item.
Did we do
We
9B?
skipped over 9B.
9B?
9B, sir.
That's right.
It's okay.
Turn my hearing aids and my glasses. I'm sorry. Back up to 10B. We'll conduct a public hearing on ordinance 1078B having to do with tattoo parlors. Michaela?
Can everyone hear me? There we go.
No.
Good evening, council members. My name is Michaela Noble, Assistant Planner with the Community Development Department. The item we have before you is an amendment to the Lincoln Municipal Code regarding tattoo parlors and/or body piercing establishments. Currently, the zoning ordinance conditionally allows tattoo parlors in commercial districts. However, proposed tattoo parlor locations must first meet a separation requirement of 400 feet from all existing residential uses, churches, and schools in order to even apply for a CUP. Under the current zoning standards, there are limited locations that could accommodate a tattoo parlor due to the 400-foot requirement. City staff is proposing that tattoo parlors be allowed as a permitted use in commercial districts and that the 400-foot separation requirement is removed. In January, the Planning Commission recommended their approval to City Council. For some context, in October 2004, Ordinance 776B was passed, which conditionally allowed tattoo parlors in commercial zones as long as they're 400 feet away from residential uses, churches, and schools. Prior staff had recommended that this use be allowed conditionally, and the former chief of police requested that the 400-foot separation requirement be added. Staff researched this ordinance and could not find any rationale such as correlating crime statistics or supporting documentation that would justify the need for the 400-foot requirement. Traditionally, there have been negative stigmas associated with tattoos and tattoo parlors. Tattoos have been seen as taboo and weren't widely accepted, and parlors have been seen as detrimental to the community. Since Ordinance 776B was passed in 2004, tattoos have become more commonplace and accepted. Reports show that in 2023, 32% of American adults have at least one tattoo, an increase of almost 10% from a 2010 survey. The Lincoln Police Department has expressed no concerns in allowing tattoo parlors as a by right permitted use and removing the separation requirement. Tattoo parlors must follow the Safe Body Art Act of 2011, AB 1168, State Health and Safety Code, and County Health Permit and Operation requirements. Also, tattoo artists in California cannot tattoo anyone under the age of 18, even if they have parental consent. Overall, there are already existing systems in place to protect sensitive groups and ensure that tattoo shops operate safely. Staff surveyed local jurisdictions' tattoo parlor regulations and found that they vary in where and how tattoo parlors are permitted and what business type they're classified as. None of the jurisdictions surveyed have a minimum distance requirement from sensitive groups. However, the city of Loomis does restrict tattoo parlors in locations that abut residential neighborhoods. The proposed amendment is also consistent with several policies of the general plan by diversifying new businesses within the city. Staff recommends council determine that the Title 18 amendment complies with CEQA guidelines section 15378 and adopt an ordinance adding tattoo parlors and/or body piercing establishments to the list of permitted uses within the commercial district and remove the 400-foot separation requirement. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Any questions of Mikhail?
I just have one. Thank you for that. That was very helpful. So am I understanding correctly that tattoo parlors still require a CUP? We're just removing the 400-foot barrier?
No.
Or they can just apply for a business license and then they can go?
Correct. No
Okay.
CUP requirement.
Okay.
You would just, like you said, apply
Okay.
for a business license. And if it's approved in commercial, if it's in a commercial district,
Commercial
it should be approved
Okay.
and you'd be good to go.
Okay.
Any other?
Really just an observation. It was pointed out to me a while back that we already have tattoos being done in town in the form of permanent makeup. And so we haven't been bothered by that, hasn't troubled anybody. They're following the same laws that any new tattoo parlors would follow. So for consistency's sake, I think it's appropriate that we support this.
Yeah, we have a few people who have approached us over the years that just want an honorable business. It's an art form. I mean, tattoos aren't my thing. I don't have any, but all my adult children have tattoos. And so I think we've come to a place where it could be a good business and a lot of people want it and desire it. And so I appreciate staff taking this on, going through the process of amending this, bringing it forward to Planning Commission, bringing it forward to us, because I think it's been a long time coming. And I really appreciate that, and I'm supportive.
What was the reason that the Police chief or whoever it was that wanted that implemented in the first place.
Yeah, unfortunately, in my research, I couldn't find any documentation recording why that was. It was kind of thrown in there somewhere and I couldn't track it down, so.
Do we even know who it was?
Well,
It was probably
It was-
really small.
yeah, I'm sure Chief Alves can, yeah, well, I think he can probably explain, but probably because stigmas and
It was a very different time.
it was different, and sometimes, depending on where it's at, tattoo parlors could be, seedy establishments and things like that, and not good influences on schools and whatever, but Chief can elaborate on the reasoning behind that before.
Yeah, Councilmember Joyner said exactly what I was going to say. It was a different time.
Mhm.
It's 2004, and working for that chief at the time, I could see that being the decision, which was probably fine at the time, but it's 20 years later, so
Mhm.
it's time to keep up with the times.
What is surprising to me when I read it is I understand sociological change and agree with things changing. 2004 was just yesterday, it's not
Well, that's true.
the 50 years ago, it's just yesterday, so.
So what was the number? 44% of all adults?
32% have
32.
at least one, so there
Right.
could be.
I'm just trying to do the
yeah.
math up here
Right.
and figure out who.
One in three chance.
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, any
Public hearing.
comments from the public?
You have to open the public hearing, Mayor.
It's a public hearing. Did I open it? No. Open the public hearing, please. Now, anyone wishing to give testimony?
Mhm. Mr. Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members, city staff. A quick little comment about that, and I agree with everyone here. The fact that when I was growing up, either you're in the military, and usually it was sailors, or you had the Hells Angels or some
Exactly.
other activity.
Exactly.
Outside of that, nobody had anything to do with it. And it has become literally a work of art. I mean, I've seen some of these things. The only advice I'll throw out there for anybody who wants to hang on to it is two of my children, they were adults at the time, and they said, Dad, I'm thinking about getting a tattoo. What do you think? And I said, well, what do you want? And they said, well, I saw this really, really, I love dolphins, and I really saw this really, really cute dolphin. And I just can't stop thinking about that. And that would look really, really nice. And I went, all right, okay. Here's my thought. At your age, if you get it tomorrow, it's probably going to be the cutest little dolphin you're going to ever be seeing. If you really, truly want that dolphin, you really need to want it for like 10 to 15 years. Because once you get committed, you can have it removed, but most people are like, I'd rather die. So I said, well, my only thought to that is if you jump ahead now, you get it tomorrow and we're 25, 30 years down the road and you have children, you're going to have to explain to them that that used to be a dolphin. And now has come to be some sort of a whale that one eye is here and something else is down here, or you're going to have to blanket the whole area and start over. I said, so if you use those two guidelines, I think you're probably going to be okay. So with that, thank you very much.
That's funny.
Isn't it?
Byron, show us your tattoo. I know
Right.
you've got it. I know where it is. I just have a question for Michaela. And is it under 18 that the piercing is okay, but the tattoos are not? Michaela.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
No, Michaela, they're not allowed under 18 in any form, right? Under state law. Oh, body person, okay.
Okay, anyone online wishing to? Okay, I'll close the public hearing. bring it back for discussion or vote.
If there's no other discussion, I move approval of item 9B, ordinance 1078B.
Second.
A motion and a second.
Yes, Councilmember Andriotta?
Yes.
Councilmember Joyner?
Yes.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Lauritsen?
Yes.
And Mayor Carlskin.
Yes. Now we'll go on to general business, revisit it. 10A, discussion and action. This is an item where we'll have some discussion and possibly 2 actions that will come out of it. Certainly 1 action will come out of it. And that's either that we will amend the resolution of censure 2022-113 or not, and we will appoint a vice mayor for this year. Additionally, in the discussion, when we put this on the agenda, was the long-term discussion of the long-term handling of the rotation of mayor and vice mayor. Because things have changed, our code isn't up to date, and we should have done it before, and we haven't, and pretty soon there's going to be another election. So anyway, I'd like to open the discussion, and the censure resolution that we had prohibited Councilmember Lawrenson in section 3 from, he was removed from all city and regional commissions and committees and be replaced by a potential amendment. And I'd like to put it up as a straw man. Have, take a motion on it and discussion. And that's it. To add to section 3, the phrase where it says, removed from all city and regional committees and commissions, and neither shall be permitted to serve in any office of the city council, including but not limited to mayor or vice mayor. And then the rest of the phrase was, and to be replaced by council members in good standing for the balance of the term of the year.
So you're recommending that addition? Is that what you were saying?
I'm saying so we have
For discussion.
something, a target to discuss, that we put that amendment, the amendment which says inserting in section 3, the following phrase, and neither shall he be permitted to serve in any office of the council, including but not limited to mayor and vice mayor. So we're supposed to have an issue before we discuss things. So is someone going to put that in the form of a motion?
You want to?
Are we suggesting that we make a motion on that item and making that change to the resolution?
Well, to discuss it,
Well,
right? You can't.
I don't think we need a motion to discuss it, but if we do, I'm happy to make that motion.
Same difference.
Mhm.
Oh. A second to his motion. To discuss
Yeah,
it.
I second.
Yes, we can discuss it.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm going to take a voice vote.
So I think what worries us is that it feels like we're taking an action rather than having a discussion. And for me, I quite honestly, I wanted to hear from Bill.
Yeah.
Before any decisions are made
I agree.
moving forward. That was just me.
I'd like to hear from Bill, yeah.
That's fine.
Okay. So why don't you start with the discussion then?
Well, again, I'd like to hear from Bill. It's about a year ago, we promised, to bring this item back at the end of the year for further discussion. We're a little late on doing that, but it's here now. And so we have an additional year worth of encounters and experiences that I think concern the council. But I would very much like to hear from Bill and get your thoughts on the interactions that have taken place over this last year.
My reaction is basically the same as when this started. I do not agree with it. I do not support it. And I find this was a hit job. Okay? It was organized. Mr. Oliver was coached to doing it. Okay? He's the one that came to me. He, at the beginning of his conversation over the phone or over his email, whatever it was that he was looking for someone to have a fight with. And he got up to me, kind of got in my face, kept pushing against me. So I don't agree that this, and as a matter of fact, I remember the original meeting when one member of the council actually said that she was looking at it from the very beginning. If that council member was looking at this Facebook account from the very beginning, then that council member knew exactly what was going to happen. I'm sorry, I do not agree with this at all. You do what you want, okay? It's up to you, but you're going to get no help from me. Sorry.
How do you feel about the interactions, not that one incident, but the interactions in council meetings when issues come up that you're not in favor of?
I vote against them, but that's my right.
Well, I'm not talking about the voting. What I'm asking about is the conduct of.
What conduct? I vote against something I don't agree with. I speak out against something I don't agree with. That's my right.
And I'm not.
Okay, so I'm sorry, that those are the, if that's the interactions you're talking about,
No.
that's exactly what I don't understand. What are you talking about?
Well, the conduct of
What conduct?
raising your voice
Okay.
or pointing fingers.
I've had people point fingers at me and raise their voice. Maybe you haven't, but other people have.
And that means what?
That means what? What does it mean?
No, I'm asking about your conduct.
I'm asking about your conduct.
Okay, what about my conduct?
How about when you was lecturing me on ethics? Okay, I'm sorry, I'm not going to get into it with you, Ben.
I know.
And as a matter of fact, I'm recusing myself from the rest of this meeting. I'm sorry.
Okay.
This is part of a hit job. I will not take part in it, and I am recusing myself. I know,
All right.
Ben, you think you're smart. You're not as smart as you think.
I'm open to having a discussion.
I'm not having a discussion with you.
I motion that we go ahead and put that into the, what you've recommended, solely on the grounds that I'm for harmony, not just in council, but in community. I don't feel that if he were to be able to serve as vice mayor or mayor, that he would help to create that harmony that we need in staff,
Yeah.
community, and
There is a whereas clause already in the legislation, already in the censure that covers this. It says, whereas Councilman Lawrence's conduct has caused the council to question his ability to effectively serve the voters and the residents, both in its capacity as a council member and on the city or regional committees, where it is important for the city to have a respected voice at the table. I think that that's what you were trying to get at.
I value his opinion and I value his point of view as much as I value anybody else's. I don't feel that he would help create that harmony that we need to be able to move forward. And I keep using the word harmony because if you think about music, you have several different music notes that are completely separate from each other, but all together.
I guess I'll go ahead and jump in here. I'm actually a little disappointed. I'd really hoped that Bill, knowing this was coming, knowing that he had the opportunity to defend his position and speak on some of the incidences that have happened in this body, and some of them quite recently. The attacks on other council members, the accusations of 2 of our members not being elected. I think most of us, if not all of us, at different times along this path have begun to soften on the censure and want to give Bill another chance, and inevitably another incident occurs that makes it very, very difficult to trust his ability to represent the council and the city and the policies that are decided by this council. Because one of the things that happens as a council member is you may not agree with a vote. You may have voted no, but once that decision has been made and policy has been set by this council, the job is to carry that policy forward. And I don't have confidence. The Councilmember Lawrence can do that. I don't have trust that in the absence of guidance or the presence of other council members, the voice, if any, that he would have at committees would reflect the council, the city, and the best interests of the city. So as much as I had hoped to get some insights that would allow me to soften a little bit, Dan, I know that you, as you were looking at committee assignments, thought maybe we can have a little break in here and return him to a couple of committees. And I don't think it was 2 weeks later that we had a blurting out in a very loud voice of some foul language here at council. And it's easy to forget that that type of thing isn't contained to this room. There are 400 or 500 people sitting in their living rooms who didn't expect that unprofessional outburst. And so unfortunately, I just haven't found the ability to trust Councilmember Lawrence in moving forward. And I guess what the other piece that we need to address is this. There's a lot of comments that Councilmember Lawrence isn't allowed to represent his district because he's not on committees. Well, when you're on committees, you are not representing a district. You are representing the entire city and the policies of the council. In all things representing his district here, he is absolutely allowed, and he's given all the same information that all the rest of us are, and the same access to staff. So he is not, in my mind, he is not prevented from representing his constituents whatsoever. And I'd have a problem with it if he was, but committee assignments and even rotating into vice mayor or mayor are very trusted positions, and I don't think this council has that level of trust.
Nope, I would agree with that.
There was a meeting, I think it was last week. There was a meeting, was it last week, on the Titan missile site. that Councilman Lawrenson was in, rightly so, he's been very involved. But he made a comment about approving Hidden Hills in Village 1, saying that it was approved and that shouldn't have been. That's not supporting the decision that the council made and staff made after discussion as a unit. There have been too many instances of that, other than being on the dais, that has bothered me. He is not representing the council. You can't trust him, and that's a bad word to use, to represent the council and and therefore the city on a lot of issues. So we did, by the way, bring this forward a year ago because we had the discussion. We didn't modify it, which probably should have. We had the discussion about additional training and allowing him to do additional training to help him do the job as a city council. And we approved that.
Yeah, I'm not going to say much. I just will reiterate what you said. And I had a comment from a resident yesterday who said that they believe that us keeping this going was more personal and I adamantly deny that. And it is not personal. In fact, as you said, Councilmember Joyner, all of us outside of here have tried multiple times. On a personal level, I have tried multiple times to bridge the gap, to ease the tensions, and every single time it gets thrown back in my face, and that's fine. I'm a big girl, I can take it, but that's on a personal level. This is not personal. This is a matter of trust for the city. I had a prominent business owner tell me just the other day that at a community event, that was it's one of the best events that the city does, that the chamber does, that Councilmember Lawrenson came up to him. He says, "Oh, you're so-and-so," called him a name of a political nature and began to berate him and antagonize him, accusing him of getting special treatment from the city, and on and on and on. And I was so embarrassed, and all I could do is say, "I'm sorry, that's not how the city views." And he said, "Oh, I know, but that kind of thing happens over and over and over again." And I also relayed to this concerned resident, which I understand that people want him to be able to serve, but our community, or excuse me, our regional partners, all the other council members on other cities, our county partners, don't trust him either. And that puts us in a really hard position because this council, the one previous that when Alyssa was here, but all of us, we have worked so hard to bring Lincoln to a place of respect and to working well with our partners, and we have achieved that, and we're in a good place. And when these things happen, it just throws us back to, where we're trying to salvage our reputation, and I don't want to be in that place all the time. Our reputation is important. And was also said, as you said, Councilmember Joyner, that, he's a smart guy with great ideas. He is welcome anytime to bring forth, other than the Titan missile site, which he has been very involved in, we're all grateful for that. He's done a lot of work on that, and it's awesome. But there are a lot of issues in this town. There are a lot of projects. There are a lot of things that people that he serves would want to see happen, or to even comment when we're having discussions, but he doesn't. He sits on his phone, he yells at us. There's no interaction, there's no representing. I would love to see him bring something forward and say, "Hey, can we work on this? This is important to me." I would love that, but we don't get that. And so it makes me sad because, like you, I was really hoping that we could have a conversation. And it's not personal at all. This is about the the reputation of our city, of our staff, the working relationship, and being able to run a meeting the way it needs to be run. So
Not to draw this out too much, you mentioned staff. So one last thought there. The outbursts, not just here in these chambers, but elsewhere in the building through the last couple, 3 years, I guess, have created, in my opinion, come right up against the edge of not crossing the line of creating an unsafe work environment for staff and for the council. And we simply can't have that.
Further discussion.
And that's the only thing that I want,
Pardon me?
the only thing I would finish with is, I was just trying to have a discussion with him. And he ended up having to leave. I can only imagine if he ended up having to have a discussion with a citizen that disagreed with him on something, and I cannot even imagine how that would even end up. And that'll finish with that.
All right, so I think you actually have a motion and a second to include.
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
What is the motion in a second? What did you?
to add in your statement in section 3.
Okay, to amend the,
Mhm.
okay, fine. So now we'll open it to the public. Any members of the public wishing to speak on this item?
We do have a hand raised on Zoom, Mayor.
And Mr. Chapman.
Lena? Sorry, hold on just a second. Lost my. Please unmute yourself, Lena.
Good, good evening, council. I just want to say, first of all, I am in District 4, which is Bill Laurison's district. And I would like to ask you to continue censoring him. And it's not really about the original thing that happened. It just continues and continues him acting out. And, just like tonight, rather than to have a discussion with you, he just left. I mean, I really would love to have a councilman that doesn't act that way. And I ask you to continue the censure. Thank you.
Thank you, Lena. Anyone?
Mr. Chapman.
Okay, Mr. Chapman.
Once again, Byron Chapman, 12 Bridges area. Mr. Mayor, council members, city staff. This is one of those hard scenarios that you look at. And I believe through the process, even what was shared here this evening, my understanding is he cannot be removed, or any council member cannot be removed by the commission, but that his constituents can do that. Okay, so that's one avenue. And I think that addresses maybe what the constituents, whether they feel differently or whatever their position is in this. I think that's important. The other part too really comes down to semantics. If I look at what our society invoked 20 years ago in a meeting like this, I hate to drag the U.S. government into this, but if you look at where we are now, outbursts are almost as common as somebody walking through a door. And we have many schools, and most recently, and I would love to say that we've got a handle on that, but we don't. I think the one thing that we have to address, I believe in the right way, if an individual is identified and or based on everyone's input and I'm saying this very definitely, not as a hearsay, but as a person steps up to the plate and says, this is the action I had. By doing that, then you get a clearer picture as to where you are, and then that dictates where you are. I think the ultimate that we have to look at in this scenario is not just Bill, but anyone. When we recognize and realize that this could become a very serious and very unsafe scenario, that I think puts literally right at the top of the list, from functionality, from knowledge, from experience. If you don't have a safe environment and you don't address that, what are you going to feel like tomorrow if something comes down the road? And we could have, we should have, and I'm not making any inferences. I'm simply saying you need to look at this strictly as a safety environment and then go from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, I will bring it back up, I guess, for a vote. The vote is the amendment. You want to read the amended? Can you?
I don't have it.
Okay. I will read it. I'll read the whole, it's section 3 of 2022-113. Section 3, it in the end will read, Councilman William Lawrenson is hereby removed from all city and regional committees and commissions to be replaced by council members in good standing for the balance of term and office, and further shall be not be permitted to serve in any office of the city council, including but not limited to mayor or vice mayor, period.
Christine, you good with that language?
I think that's clear enough for staff to administer.
Okay? So I have a motion and a second. We'll take a vote.
Sorry, who was the second?
I think it was me.
Okay, yes. Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Andriana,
Yes.
Councilmember Joyner,
Yes.
and Mayor Carlskint.
Yeah.
Listen, this is not something that we do easily.
Hmm?
This is not something we do easily. I
No.
think every one of us is saddened and frankly, a little bit sickened to have to take this action. But in many respects, it's thrust upon us.
However, this action was one of the reasons that I ran for city council first time was because the council was dysfunctional because of the ad hominem attacks between council members and the fact that there was not a consistent policy pace that was put forth. That ended when I got elected because the primary mover of that was defeated, but and it's not nice to have to end up this way at the end of my career.
Well, obviously where this leads us back to is something we tried to do a couple of times along the way, and that is a council code of conduct and something that we can all agree upon, documenting that moving forward. And I hope we get that done in the next couple of months.
Okay. So then the next item that I would like to discuss before getting to the appointment of next year's vice mayor is the fact that we need to do something about the whole rotation thing, because we are, the criteria we had before is not applicable because we district.
Doesn't work anymore.
But keeping in mind that we only have one election, no, 2 elections before the next redistricting. Correct? We got 2024 and
The next
2026
census will be taken in
and
30,
30.
correct?
and 26.
So you have an
3.
election every 2 years.
3 years. 3, we have 3 left.
Maybe.
At which time, it's open again and there has been some discussions of maybe at that point in time in our life as a city, that we go to a elected mayor and 4 council people, so it'd be different. But the current rotation, this is city clerk position or statement. What is after Mr. Lawrence's, what are
It would be Councilmember Andriotta.
Andriotta and then Councilman Brown,
Mhm.
Councilperson Brown, Councilperson. Okay. So it would make sense to just skip over. Well, we have skipped over Bill and stay with the same rotation, which would give both council people a chance to be mayor before their terms are expired. Right?
Believe so.
So you both got,
Yeah, if she's vice mayor this year.
Right.
Both
she's
of
Mayor
them.
next year.
If
I'd be mayor next year
if
after that.
she's my vice mayor, she'll be mayor next year.
right.
He'll be her vice mayor and
And he could be-
mayor the last year.
Yeah.
So,
Works.
but what are we gonna do about 2024? No,
No.
I'm sorry,
No.
2026.
26.
So if, Glenn, correct me if I'm wrong, any newly elected council member needs to serve for 2 years before.
Right,
At least one, yeah.
I think we talked about 2. I think the ordinance
Yeah,
says
I
1.
think
Does the ordinance say
Yeah.
one?
But we talked about making it 2 years before they can serve as mayor. So that's something that we could codify. And I think we have time, we can talk about it. We also talked about that the council chooses, like, once we finish a rotation, then we can choose again who to be mayor, vice mayor, based on who can do it, who's willing to serve in that position, who the council feels is best. That might be the easiest. It might not be the most, favorable, but we have time to discuss how we want to do it. But you're right, the old rotation doesn't work anymore unless we go back to at-large.
Which I would love to be able to do.
I know,
but,
yeah.
So I think one of the things that, at least in practice, the council has always known and always practiced is that the council effectively ratifies
Yes.
whether that individual
Right.
rotates in or not. I can tell you that there, in the past, have been, I don't want to go too far down this road, but conversations behind closed doors, closed session, trying to figure out whether the council can get behind a given individual or not. And then obviously all those conversations wound up back here in public. But so that ability to ratify that final piece of affirmation of that individual coming in, at least in practice, has always been there.
But I don't think actually our rotation is on our agenda. So
Yeah.
we have time, we can work on that and start crafting some
No, we
language.
don't have to make
We do have to,
the next rotation thing.
yeah,
I just,
right.
we need to talk about it.
Mhm.
We need to get it codified before 2 days after the people are elected,
Yes,
which is.
I would agree with you.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah.
Mhm.
If we stick with for this time, if we stick with the current rotation, then, everybody is protected because when you took the job on, you knew what the rotation was. And in the future, then, be what it is, but it doesn't need to be decided this year or the future. But I would like to, put forth that we, follow the old rotation, and therefore that I point, with everybody's concurrence, Holly.
And I can support it.
I'm gonna go the public, but that's where I'm sitting at right now, okay? So now, anybody in the public want to make comments on this last item that we talked about?
Oh, no hands are
No,
raised, Mayor.
nobody online? Okay. So I'll bring it back and I will
Motion
say,
to approve Councilmember Andriotta rotating in as vice mayor.
Second?
motion in a second.
Yeah, Councilmember Joyner,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Councilmember Andriotta.
Yes.
And Mayor Kroskin.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, congratulations to you. Okay. So we beat that. Have I got consensus that before we leave sometime this year, we will come up with
You're not gonna get an argument out of
rotation.
me. You're not gonna get an argument out of me. I agree with you.
some sort
Yes.
of rotation?
Yes.
Understanding that it will change and
Yeah.
probably change in 30.
Mhm.
Okay.
Would Bill like to come back for the rest of the
I don't know.
11, 12, 13,
Bill's still
14?
with us.
Next item on the agenda
Manager's report.
is council manager.
Thank you very much.
City manager.
Um,
You wish you were. a
Council
council
manager report, wait a
No.
minute. No.
That's a job that no one can do. I have a number of updates. I'll go through them quickly, so just bear with me. It's my distinct and very great honor to introduce to you this evening, I guess in the community this evening, Erin Fry, who is sitting in the back, just to the left of Veronica and to the right of Jen. Erin is our new communications and economic development specialist. She comes to us from the city of Roseville and their electric division department, where she was PIO there. And she's been on board a couple weeks now and has dove in feet first and head first, kind of like, those divers that bend themselves. But she's fantastic, has already put out a ton of great content. You'll start to see it ramp up, I think, over the next couple months in terms of our online presence, more information for the community, more media. And she's has her first economic development committee meeting tomorrow and has already gotten to work on a number of projects that they've been languishing for a little while. So we're very happy to have her, and I'm sure you'll be seeing her in front of you soon.
Aaron, I think you just got your nickname. Apparently it's Jackknife.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a cool name.
I don't know if I'm confident about that nickname, but happy to be here. Thank you.
To the comment that was made earlier, and this was actually a council-directed item from a few meetings back, and has been discussed at length even before I got here. The Council Code of Conduct workshop is scheduled for the first week in March. The specific date, if you hang with me for a moment, is you have it, Ben?
5th and 7th.
5th and 7th. We'll be sending out some information. That's a public meeting. It'll be certainly available to anybody that'd like to attend. It may end up being that we only really need the 7th date for the public meeting. To be really clear about the point of this is that it's not intended and should never be intended to be individual. This is a document that lives on past probably all of us here that helps set the standard for what at least this community and council feels is the ways of good governance. How do we get through really difficult issues where there's significant disagreement, even anger, while still being able to be productive? And it's an art, maybe more than a science. So there's a facilitator that's coming in. You'll be familiar with him. He worked on our strategic plan with us. He is a long-time former city manager, former police chief. He has worked through many of these types of endeavors before. And so I actually think it's going to be a really fun conversation because it's not the law. It's a set of common understandings that you try to adhere to. So that's one. On, I believe it's February 23rd, and I'll verify that date and send it out. The council has a workshop scheduled for a really neat potential opportunity with Western Placer Unified School District in Village 7, wherein the school district is working to try to develop a new potentially K through 8 school at that location that we, both the city and school, have need of partnership in that area in terms of joining up the school and parkland, which we think not only might provide a nicer recreational space, but certainly saves the community money. So you're not paying for two separate facilities that sometimes serve the exact same purpose. So we're going to step through that. We have some conceptual designs. We're going to talk a little bit about what the drawbacks and advantages are. And I believe our superintendent and some of her staff are going to attend as well, so we can have the council work through that as we move forward on Village 7, which is moving forward quickly right now.
It's the 21st at 4:30.
Thank you, Glenn.
Okay, I was going to say that date's scaring me a little bit because I will be out of state that day. And I
Okay.
didn't realize that was on our calendar. Okay.
So it's clear now after my last two, I don't schedule anything around here. So for that purpose. I did want to mention, I got a note from a resident who is here regarding something I was not made aware of, which I'm a little annoyed with. One of our telephone providers sent notice to a lot of the residents that live, I believe, in the Sun City 12 Bridges area, but maybe all over town. I have to do a little bit more research, wherein they're considering or are going to move forward with the elimination of landlines. And so I'm reaching out.
So
Sorry.
they are the provider of last resort, and they want to get rid of that. You're talking AT&T.
Yep. Yep.
My wife also got one from her cell phone provider, separate, that they're trying to get out of it as well. So I think something has come up with the PUC that has allowed them to do these applications coming forward. So it's more than just our community.
I'll try to get a little bit more detail on the specifics of that. One of the requests from the community member was, would council consider a resolution sort of opposing that? May be useful, may not, but certainly would be a position. Because I think the concern certainly that I'm sensitive to is that there are still plenty of people that use landlines as their primary means of communication. And while there are alternatives, maybe they're more expensive or less convenient. And so I'll be doing some additional research and to the extent that we can put something together, I'm talking with the league about it, and I'll brief you next meeting on that.
I might be wrong. I think the initial step is they want to get rid of the copper lines.
Yep.
And go to voice over IP.
Right.
But even that will vanish over time.
Yeah, in fact, I think my general thought was that if you're going to notify your customers that you're going to eliminate a service, an essential service, that it would be nice, and I haven't seen the notice, to provide alternatives that are simple and reasonable to them, and it doesn't sound like that's happening. So more to come on that. really cool news. The airport RFP for T hangars went out. We had respondent. We interviewed the candidate, a really great lengthy meeting. And the general consensus among the review committee was to move forward with that respondent. So that will be going to airport committee next week, and we'll be back at city council at the last meeting this month. So we're super excited about that. It's the first new major hangar project in forever. Yep. Next meeting, just, I don't usually do this, but just, it's going to be heavy. We are going to have a presentation by the finance director on our audit, which is complete. We're bringing back a discussion on the remaining American Recovery Act dollars and how we've carried forward basically the council's wishes all the way through the first, essentially half of those monies. And now we need a little bit direction. We'll kind of do a debrief on how we spent the money and some of the impact that it had. And then we'll talk a little bit about some supplemental requests we've received since that time. Things have changed quite a bit in just the last year. We have, if we can wrap up a couple of outstanding items, we're potentially in position to get close to presenting a mid-year budget at that time. It's not really called a mid-year budget. I think we're calling it a quarterly update or something like that. And finally, I'm requesting, if I can get them here, our league representative, Charles Anderson, is going to attend, if I can get him. I'd like a briefing for the council and the community on the California Business Roundtable ballot initiative that's due in November, which proposes some very significant changes to how taxation and fees are evaluated on a local level. And I'll leave it at that for the time being. And that's all I got, unless you have any questions. Thank you.
Next, next item is council initiated business. Does anyone on the council have an item there? Wow. Next item are committee reports. Any of your committees?
I do. I attended the SACOG Transportation Committee meeting at which these mics are a little hot tonight, aren't they? At which the on-met transit needs for the four-county region, which is Sutter, Yolo, Sacramento, and Yuba, were approved or looked at and approved. We also approved and this is important to us, the framework for the regional funding round. If you'll recall, Federal Highways and therefore Caltrans got in a little bit of trouble for the way they were allocating dollars and excluding, PCTPA as an RTP was getting funding a certain way that the feds felt was inappropriate. And past practice had been for PCTPA and El Dorado to each get their individual funding, kind of pass through SACOG. And after that finding, PCTPA and El Dorado are getting thrown into what was a four-county competitive funding round with the four counties that I mentioned earlier. And so it is now going to be a six-county competitive effort. And so we're trying to get framework in place that makes that a fair transition and retains as many of those dollars as we can possibly keep within Placer County. So I also attended on behalf of PCTPA a CalCog board meeting in Monterey, which was followed up with a regional leadership conference made up again of mostly CalCog board members and members of the state legislature and others. And within that, a couple items jumped out. One is that the governor is proposing in his budget to reduce the regional early action plan grant monies, which are right now about 600 million. He's going to reduce them by 300 million, which puts at risk some programs that have already been funded and are already underway. And if those funds get yanked back, clawed back, those programs could stall and be in a bit of trouble. So CalCog is trying to find a way. Quite honestly, they're trying to point to other funds and say that one's less important than ours. But they're going to be taking a very strong position on that moving forward. We also got a legislative update. And to this point, there are very few bills that have actually been brought forward, only about 400 so far. The deadline is near the end of the month. And so they're expecting another 2,000 bills to be submitted over the next couple of weeks. And that led into a conversation about the legislative principles of CalCog, basically the platform on which they would be making any decisions to support or oppose anything moving forward. The more interesting elements for me were the conversations being had around transportation because this group is statewide. And there were legislators there. There were the new chair of the Assembly Transportation Committee spoke, and there is increasing discussion around not just electric vehicles, EVs, but AI as it's used within EVs. And to give you a sense of where this is already heading that we didn't know about, there are 2 cities right now that have AI on their transit buses. And the AI is reading license plates of cars that are parked illegally and reporting them to the police department for a citation. That's already taking place.
Crazy.
And these folks are very excited in that technology in their minds. If you've got a bus on a particular route, that bus scanning everything gets to know every detail of that route. And so it will be able to notice something out of place, a stop sign knocked down, crosswalk that's fading, something like that. And so where these folks want to take that is municipal vehicles scanning everything and reporting back to the individual agencies. So it's neither good nor bad. I'm just telling you where things stand. And it actually surprised me that it's advancing so rapidly and with such support and excitement from so many representatives around the state. That concerns me a bit. The other big discussion really had to do with as we move forward with EVs and the reduction of gas tax revenues, which are projected to be about $1 billion next year. Obviously, the state is scrambling to figure out a way to replace those dollars. And so the discussions are not just vehicle miles traveled, which we've all heard about, but they're going farther. They're going to managed lanes. They're going to tolled lanes. There are discussions of roadway fees on top of revenues from tolled or managed lanes. So there is no clean direction whatsoever. There's just a whole bunch of scrambling and exploration of what might be able to replace those dollars. What I did find interesting was that the new chair of the Assembly Transportation Committee, who comes from a disadvantaged community, made it very, very clear she would not be supporting vehicle miles traveled tax. So that's a good sign in the short term that may at least be delayed as we can dig into more possibilities of how we can do this. That's all I have, Mayor.
It's interesting, 2 things, the AI thing. Several of us, in fact, 3 of us in here, were judges at a speech contest last week for high school students. And part of the preparation was they gave us a handout of because it's just, everybody had the same subject, an AI created speech And we were admonished to look at that speech, have the generator generate one for us, and then to have it while we're evaluating the kids to see the phrasing, whether it's the same. So they're worried about AI in something as clean, safe, and wonderful as a speech contest for high school students. You know, it's just, the other thing is, it's really strange on the fact that they're worried about losing tax on EVs, and that just came up. There's for people of interest, the legislative analysts, people that look at legislation with an unbiased opinion, and do the things for the ballots, whether they're who's lying and not lying and what it's really going to cost, have published a book or a report that is long-term policy problems, policy issues in the state of California. These are issues that come up that have to be worked on, that everybody knows about, i.e., what are we going to do when the cars are electric and we're not getting it selling any gas? Problem's been around for 15 years now. And it lists a significant number of these that never get handled by the legislature because they're too busy getting elected every 2 years. It really is eye-opening to read the document. So go to the state legislative aid website, and it's called the Long-Term Policy State of California or something like that. Anyway, I'm sorry. That's not a committee report. That's comments on your committee report.
That's fine. It's actually, it's very, very quickly. One of the opening, I guess they were inspirational speaker, actually, presented a concept that she referred to as a vending machine. What happens when we put our money into a vending machine and we don't get what we asked for, right? We kick it, we shake it, we cuss. You know, some people put more money in hopes it'll work this time, type of deal. And the reason for that being brought up was the observation that we have moved from a citizen participant-based way of thinking within our communities to a vending machine way of thinking. Citizens now as customers who have put their money in and expect to get something back out. And so how do we, as electeds, address the public that now is seeing themselves as a customer more than as a participant and a citizen moving forward? And so that's a huge discussion to be had in the future as well.
So you're saying we should go kick a legislator?
No, I'm not going to say that.
Do you have any committee reports?
I just have one. We had our first air pollution control board meeting last week. And one of the main things that we talked about was the federal government Clean Air Act now is requiring that all districts impose what they call Rule 611. And basically what it is, it's for specific stationary entities, so not mobile, not cars, but businesses, plants, whatever. If they don't reach attainment, then the district has to assess a fee for them. And in our area, that applies to Sierra Pacific, Roseville Energy Park, Watma, and Rio Bravo and Rockland. Setting aside the fact that they've already done so much mitigation and they're running as clean as they can. The federal government is still expecting them to hit a certain marker. If they don't, there's a good chance that they will, but if they don't, the district is required to assess a fee to them, basically government shakedown, and then they have to pay that. But what we have done is we've created, the government doesn't say how we have to use that money. So we pass basically we have to, hands are tied, we have to pass the fee. And then just, help and support them that they can make it. If they don't and they have to pay the fee, then we will collect the fee, we'll put it in an account for them and then give it back to them in the form of grants and ways that they can, implement for different programs or clean air stuff or whatever. It's not exactly just turning right around and give it back to them. There's parameters to that. But it's a way that we can help mitigate the sting if they do have to pay that. We're hoping that they don't. And so I made some arguments about, specifically Sierra Pacific and WATMA, supporting them, doing what we can to help them. And they're already doing everything that they can to run as clean as they can. But anyway, so it's one of those things where I likened it in the meeting to our land use authority. It's like we have to play the game. We have to have our arena numbers. We have to have our plan, because if we don't, then the state will come in and take our land use authority, but we still exercise authority over that as best we can. It's the same concept. So that was something that we had a long conversation about at the meeting, and that was it. And then Dan and I are swapping over Pioneer and WAPMA, and that's going well. And so doing the executives review, and that's going well. And so everything is trucking right along.
I sat in for Holly at WAPMA, which is kind of strange. Anyway, a very short meeting. They have Emily Hoffman is their, she's an environmental specialist, but she really is an outreach person. She's doing a fantastic job for them. There are all kinds of joint activities and ventures with the colleges. And they actually, we voted to go with the Rockland School District and put together an intern program so that the kids can check off some environmental science requirements by working at WAPMA.
I think that was Roseville Joint Union High School District. I think it's Roseville, not Rockland. Yeah.
The other thing, we reaffirmed the tipping fees for next year, keeping it, they were due to go up 2.5%. And that's sufficient for us to meet our qualifications for the bonds. That was a case where the first 2 years of the tipping fee of the rate, tipping fee is what they charge to handle a truckload of garbage. We had to do a rate update because of the new construction, the new system. And we front loaded them. So the first year was an 8.5% increase. Second year is an 8.5% increase. And now it's down to 2% and forecast out 2%. So doing it that way, the cushion is built to protect the lower rates in the future, which is what I hope and what we plan for our rates that we built, that we passed and were voted on this summer, so, for the city. Okay. The other committee meetings I have are this week and next week. So, okay. Next item on the agenda is information items. Anybody have any?
Nope.
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 We're in the meeting.
Thank you, staff.
I know that's what you're supposed to do. 1 to open, 2 to close.